So I'm doing a follow-up on penance. Penance, of course, being discipline. Uh, I'm not going to go over everything that I mentioned in the last video, but check out my first video on penance so you can get a brief overview before continuing with this video. There are two types of penance or discipline. One for sense gratification, gratifying the five senses, and the other one is for self-realization. So, the five sensing, senses: touch, taste, smell, sight, and hearing. A lot of times we tend to live in or take things at face value based on the five senses as we navigate through relationships and eventually make our way to MGTOW. And it's key to understand that it takes a lot of discipline, a lot of penance to have the five senses under control, where we're not really trying to gratify or seek pleasure in the five senses. You come into MGTOW, you should take on a different mindset on how to go forward. And with penance or discipline, you can apply it to the diet as far as taste. Eat food to live, not live to eat food, for instance. I'm not saying you can't enjoy a good meal. I'm just saying make some changes if food is your weakness. Work on that. So touch, I'll put touch and sight together. When it comes to women, you like the feel of a woman's skin. You like seeing the form of a woman's body. Things like that. You got to be disciplined, or discipline yourself where you can still appreciate those things, but you don't lose control based on your, as far as your senses are concerned, because you're now disciplined, you're more aware. It's a good mindset to take on. It's probably going to be tough for a lot of people to do, but if you've already gone your own way, it should be a lot easier to address sense gratification when it comes to those things. As far as hearing, you listen to yourself, you listen to your body, you listen to the things that are surround you. We have an instinctual sixth sense, I would say, when you know something is wrong. You're listening to these videos, listen to them, but also go out there and do your own research. The books that I recommend if you're looking for self-realization and possibly discipline when it comes to controlling the five senses, would be spiritual text. Like I've mentioned, the Srimad Bhagavatam is a good one, the Bhagavad Gita, even the Bible and Quran. If those texts are too extreme, even some of the Buddhist texts you can read as well, to really get a grasp on those things. But you can't read these texts looking, from you can't read them from a spiritual perspective. Read them for the lessons, the philosophy of it. Obviously, if you read them for religious purposes, by all means you do that, but to apply the things that you need to get from those texts, where you have to apply it for earthly living, you got to read the text a little differently than purely on pure faith. You got to practice some of the things. One of the biggest, one of the I guess to me one of the most important texts that I've seen so far. I know I mentioned a lot of the Sanskrit stuff, but one of the most ones that actually come from the Bible, 1 Corinthians chapter 13. And the psychology behind that is so significant. It'll be several lifetimes to truly be able to grasp it, and in the sense where you could practice it on a daily basis, because it's tough. It's a tough one. We don't think, especially modern people, we don't think with that level of discipline or penance to execute some of the stuff in there that's suggested in that particular text. But I know a lot of that stuff work because I've seen it personally in practice. But this video is really not about that. So it's more about, disciplining your senses, as far as gratifying your senses. So pay attention to what you're hearing, and if you're hearing garbage, or you're hearing things that don't really seem right, move away from that sort of thing. Listen to yourself, your inner voice, as well. But smell is another sense of gratification. We may like the scent of a woman, her perfume, whatever it is. You have to be, discipline yourself to have a goal. You see, with discipline, with level of discipline, and you have a goal in mind, and penance, you're more likely to achieve a lot of that stuff. Even if you're seeking wealth, if you're seeking even relationship, whatever you're seeking, with the right discipline, you can achieve those things. Obviously, you have to learn things along the way, which is part of discipline or penance, to achieve that. In other words, you have to have a submissive attitude. We look for that in women, as far as submitting to the man in a relationship. We as men also have to have submissive attitudes. We have to have the submissive attitude in performing the penance or the work that's required to achieve our goals in relationships. So it's not really just well, women need to submit to men. We have some things to be submissive to, and by being submissive to the process of self-growth and self-realization and things like that, in taming or controlling the five senses for sense gratification, you got to put in that work. You got to be disciplined. You have to be submissive to the process, and and practice that stuff on a regular basis. So just be mindful of that. You got to be submissive to the process, and you got to be devoted to the process of what your being in MGTOW is about. And once you're able to do that, you should be able to start seeing the results. But don't get hung up too much on the results. Be submissive to the process. And when you do look up, you'll realize, wow, you've gone a lot further than you thought you would have gone, in whatever that would be. And you gotta stay disciplined, even if you're perplexed about what your duty is, you still gotta stay disciplined and focus, and eventually a lot of that stuff will become clear. So your relationship ended, or you decide to end your relationship, you're going your own way, take this opportunity to perform the penance of self-realization, knowing yourself. It's a tough one for me. I'm constantly working on that particular one. You have to look at a religious video I did on MGTOW and religious life, or whatever it was. I can't remember the name. MGTOW for the religious man. Those 7 things that I mentioned is what I'm working on, but it is applicable to anything else. But knowing you oneself and being disciplined in really truly understanding that is a big step in coping or keeping the five senses under control as far as sense gratification. What I'm working on as far as in the five senses for right now would be taste, food. I am disciplined for the most part except when it comes to desserts, things like cakes, cookies, things like that. As far as exercising, I do that regularly because I coach boxing. But so, and I mention that because I don't want you all to think that you can achieve everything and there's never work to be done. There's always penance to be done, and that particular one is the toughest for me. I'm not in bad shape. I can pretty much go quite a few rounds working with my athletes because I have to do that. It's like 20 of them, 2 rounds each. So sometimes I do 40 rounds of work, and they're 3-minute rounds. So it's not really as far as fitness and conditioning, I do that, but I also have to work, I guess, on the eating part. Even though I'm not crazy fat, but I can still lose a few pounds, if you know what I mean, and cut back, be disciplined on the, for me, taste. As far as touch, smell, hearing, sight. When I see women, I still observe, see, I still say, oh, she's pretty, she has a nice body, things like that. However, it doesn't move me the same way. Where I lose focus on self-discipline or the penance, and it's not going to be easy in the beginning, and it's certainly not going to be easy if you're young. As you get older, a lot of your biology tend to mature with that, and the mind for some reason becomes more mature, where you're able to be more in control of emotions. But it doesn't mean that you can't start young and start disciplining yourself in these behaviors, because behaviors are learned in most cases. Some behaviors are inherited, but most behaviors are learned. And by applying penance and discipline and being submissive to the process of the penance or the discipline, you should be able to go a lot further. And most importantly, when you do get into a relationship, a certain level of respect, you'll demand a certain level of respect, you will give a certain level of respect, and in turn you should be able to receive equal or more levels of respect from the woman in that process. And if for some reason you don't reciprocate a lot of the same respect that you are putting out there, then you will be more aware through self-realization, because you've disciplined yourself to understand, well, this relationship isn't for you, and you can walk away from it again in a much smoother, holistic way, where you don't feel like you have an emptiness inside, you don't feel like you're worthless, you don't feel any of the negative side effects of breaking up in a relationship. You'll be able to be, again, fully self-contained, where you can walk away and really enjoy life, and then seek out the next relationship. If you have any questions, ask it in the comment section down below. Like, subscribe, share the video if you think it's worth sharing, and you all have a good day.